Hey everybody, today I have a cool video I want to share with you about facts about your bladder. I've been wanting to do this for a while, so we're just going to kind of dive into it. This is going to be more of like a informative video, and I hope you guys enjoy and learn something that you may have not already known about your bladder. These are the sort of things that I did and didn't know, so I kind of just looked them up just to base some of what I knew off of facts, obviously. So we're just gonna jump right into it. Fact numero 1. There is no such thing as a small bladder, which I think I've talked about before, but what you may be experiencing are symptoms of an overactive bladder. Your bladder stretches and then shrinks again, so your bladder is normally alerting your brain when it needs to go. Based on normal voiding, filling activity, your bladder should be able to hold anywhere from 400 milliliters to 600 milliliters. And when it's about half full, your bladder alerts your brain that it needs to void soon. So imagine a 500 milliliter bottle of water that is full, and this is not obviously because I was drinking it, but imagine a 500 milliliter bottle of water sitting in your bladder. They say about 400, which is probably about this much of the bottled water, to 600 milliliters is about an average weighing. So at around 250 milliliters, which is a half a pound, essentially, or a cup, your brain is alerted that your bladder is starting to fill, right? Taking this information, we're gonna go into fact number 2. You should be voiding every 3 to 4 hours. It's sort of standard, apparently. And on a daily waking scale, going to the bathroom about 8 or 9 times a day, and that's still normal. So that means that your bladder can hold anywhere from like a small bottle of water to a large bottle of water for at least 3 or 4 hours, or, you know, anywhere from 1 to 3 hours sometimes. That's pretty strong. That's pretty strong for just a regular bladder. That's like a pound or 2 of liquid that it can hold at any given time, all the time. So that's, I just thought that was kind of cool when you put it in that kind of aspect, I guess. So the only reason I'm saying a pound or 2 or 500 milliliters to 1,000 milliliters is because we as people are all over the board. So your normal may not necessarily be my normal. And I know that me, on average, a completely full bladder seems to be around 600 milliliters, which is what the average seems to be. But I know I could hold, like, people can hold more than 600 milliliters. For me, that's a normal full bladder, but yet I still have an overactive bladder. So just take with a bit of grain of salt. Not everyone's normal is going to be the same, and you may be able to hold up to 1,000 milliliters, which is a liter of urine, before needing to void, which is whatever, that's fine. That may be fine, it may not be, but that's just something that your body does that other people's bodies do not. Fact number 3. Restricting fluids to avoid washroom stops is not a healthy or effective way to stop overactive bladder or incontinence. In fact, when you start restricting fluids, you can actually irritate your bladder more because your urine is more concentrated and acidic and can cause you to leak on the way to the bathroom. So it's actually causing more problems than it would be helping, because in your brain you're thinking drinking less fluids is going to help. In fact, you need still to regulate water into your system so that you can pee out the toxins in your body. So no, restricting fluids is never going to be a solution to stopping overactive bladder or wetting the bed. Case closed. Fact number 4. A woman has a 10 times more likely chance to get a bladder infection as opposed to a man. It goes without saying the woman's urethra length is significantly shorter than a man's, obviously, so that makes the bacteria has a shorter distance to travel in a woman's urethra tract than a man's. So we're 10 times more likely to get a urinary tract infection or bladder infection than a man. However, I'd like to point out that does not mean that every woman is going to get a bladder infection. I just know that some people are more prone to it than others. I myself, I don't think I've ever gotten or had a bladder infection before in my life, and if I have, it was never noticeable to the point where I need medication. But the thing is, with bladder infections, when you hold in your urine for long periods of time, that can mean that bacteria will populate in your bladder, so you can get bladder infections just from that alone. But in the end, not everyone will, and not every man will, not every woman will, but just is that women are more likely to get it because of the shorter distance bacteria has to travel. Fact number 5, this is something I didn't actually know, but both men and women can perform Kegel exercises, which is good to know, I think. Both men and women can see a pelvic floor physiotherapist to find their Kegel muscles, but if you want to find them at home, all you need to do is to practice stopping a stream or trying to stop peeing, because then you're going to find what muscles are stopping the urine. But I think that's super important to both men and women to know that it's not just a lady thing to have Kegel muscles or practice exercises like that. It's also not necessarily going to solve all your bladder incontinence issues, but it's one thing to know about your body that applies to both men and women that I think is super important. Fact numero 6. Fact number 6 is that your diet can negatively affect your bladder behavior. So, for example, very acidic foods and like tomatoes, berries, citrus fruits, and such like that tend to irritate the bladder more and cause it to become inflamed sometimes. So with an irritated, inflamed bladder, it just means that it's going to likely be more susceptible to being to having urgency while it's still feeling like inflamed and angry. Your bladder also doesn't really like alcohol or caffeine, carbonated drinks, let me list a few other ones, chocolate, spices, pickled foods, and artificial sweeteners. So basically, try not to enjoy any aspect of life and you may not have an irritated bladder and you'll be just fine. I love having a Starbucks cup as big as my head. Oh, coffee all day. Fact number 7? Is that a 7? I can count. Fact number 7 is having a parent or both parents who once wet the bed or had an overactive bladder can be a huge component on why you are more susceptible to having an overactive bladder or wetting the bed. It unfortunately is hereditary, as most things are. However, about 50% of the time, it is not actually related to your genes. But what I found was that there was a study done a few years back that said with incontinence, over 50% of it can be explained by genetic factors. Stay with me here. That doesn't mean that half of all people with incontinence inherit it, but that 50% of all people with incontinence, their incontinence can be explained by genetic factors or their susceptibility to it. It's not exactly groundbreaking in my opinion, but to me it's something I think about or need to think about because I do not want to have kids. And this is just one reason why. There's a lot of other reasons why I don't want kids, but this is just something I know that in my life that I would never want to pass on to someone else. Fact number 8. I'm doing so good at counting today, guys. I'm very tired. Your bladder not only can be overactive, but the opposite problem can occur and you can suffer from urinary retention. Isn't that awesome? Which is the inability to completely be able to avoid your bladder. That sounds horrendous. As someone who suffers from overactive bladder, not being able to avoid your bladder, just no. I actually have a friend who has this problem to the nth degree, and I think she actually had the InterStim implant that solved this problem for her. So InterStim implant, like the one I have for overactive bladder, can also help encourage your bladder to send signals to your brain to pee. But anyways, just the retention on itself is just such a horrible thing to think about. Not being able to pee. I don't ever want to experience that. The thing about having retention, it's not about being a shy peer, but it's more about not being able to start a stream. Also having to go frequently because of not being completely empty or avoiding your bladder entirely whenever you go. And also having a painful feeling that you're not completely empty. This is actually just as serious, or if not more serious, than having an overactive bladder, because you're not emptying all the toxins out of your system. Having extra urine in your bladder can cause more bacteria to grow. And as we talked about earlier, it can cause a urinary tract infection. And if it's growing in your bladder, it can lead up to your kidneys, and other more serious things can occur. But you can also get urinary incontinence if you have actually had surgery for a tumor, cancer, or prostate surgery. So a plethora of things can happen because of retention, but it's important to know that retention can be solved or fixed just as much as I say go to the doctor if you have, well, bedwetting or overactive bladder, but go to the doctor if you can't pee. That's important. You do need to go to the bathroom in order to live your life. So please go see a doctor if you have this issue as well. Please. Fact number 9? Yeah, fact number 9 is that when you are cold, you tend to pee more often. Now, this fact is sometimes shot down online as actual truth for some reason, but for the most part, I see that online people are saying that it's because of cold diuresis. So basically, in colder weather, you know how your fingers, your ears, your nose, and your toes get the coldest the fastest? This is because of vasoconstriction. So this is an action that your body takes to reduce the blood flow across your body to your extremities, because your skin loses heat to the environment much faster than anywhere else in your body, because it's at the surface, which makes sense. With decreased blood flowing through to your extremities, your blood pressure rises due to having less space to travel around through to your body. So what does this have to do with your bladder? Well, your kidneys tell your bladder what to flush out. And since blood is now constricted, your kidneys need to filter out some of the excess fluid in your blood to reduce volume that's traveling around in your body, because there's less space of it for it to travel. Hence why you feel the need to pee more when you're cold. Because now your bladder is full of extra fluids that you actually didn't know you had in your body until it started filtering them out through your kidneys. And by peeing out those excess fluids, you're actually preserving your core warmth inside your body to have when you have an empty bladder, as opposed to having a full one. And finally, fact number 10, you feel the urge to pee when you're stressed out or anxious due to the fight or flight response. Because stress sends out many physiological, psychological, and emotional responses to your body as to help aid you when there's a threat nearby, whether that threat is performing in front of people, or as if someone just broke into your car or into your house. That would also give you a lot of stress. So your body releases endorphins to help you deal with it. And one of those responses is the need and urgency to urinate or defecate as quickly as possible. This I didn't know why, but I guess it makes sense, the fight or flight response. So don't find yourself needing to later when you're in the middle of fighting or flighting in that scenario. How nice! But for real, this is a very common response to stress, as I'm sure we all know. And we can thank our nervous system for that, I think. Anyways, that is all the facts I have for you today. I will leave links below if you want to check out some more information about some of the stuff I found and compiled for you. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And I will try and make more videos like this in the future, because I find them very interesting. As well, please subscribe if you haven't and you're watching these videos and you kind of like them or you don't like them. Subscribe anyway. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!